So why do I keep going to museums? Because museums hold all sorts of interesting artifact and history and expressions and moments in time. And art is for everyone. Hey friends, welcome to MBC Lifestyles Diary. My name is Marie, I live in New York. I love cultural events, fashion, travel, cooking and entertaining, and I'm asking you to join me on the adventure. Hey friends, I'm standing here in front of MoMA PS1 in Long Island City, Queens. It was called PS1 because literally it was public school 1. It was the #1 school of the ward, and this structure is called Gothic Revival. So I made a mistake before calling this a Gothic Revival. It's a Romanesque Revival. That's the original building, the original school building. I remember coming here in 1979. It was only open 8 years, and it was a New York public school. It wasn't glamorous, there was no air conditioning, but it was the first time I saw art by people of color, and it was wonderful. When I say that art by people of color, I mean contemporary artists in the New York scene that were being given a place to work. This concept of revitalizing underused or abandoned New York buildings to create art space was started by Alana Hess, a girl from Louisville, Kentucky. She had to come here and see a potential of using these buildings for alternative art space and cementing contemporary art into our psyche. So in 1971, this was the original entrance. In 2000, they merged with MoMA, or went under the wing of MoMA and became PS1 MoMA. And as you can see now, we're redirected to the entrance on Jackson. And with some MoMA money and support, they were able to do a renovation and expand. Basically, yeah, you had to leave Manhattan to come see this spot. I'm talking back in 1979, where nobody even knew what Long Island City was. And before all this development in cafes and restaurants, there was this art space. And people were taking the train and buses and cabs to come out and see the work of the artists. That in itself was incredible. But I also think it was a wonderful time because artists were usually people that didn't have much means but felt that they had something important to say, something about the society. Yes, that remains true, but what I find interesting in the United States is that, and I've watched this happen in Miami on Lincoln Road and in Wynwood, it's like everything's got a dollar amount attached to it. So when something becomes interesting because of the artist or the people that are termed living on the fringes of society, and they create this vibrancy, suddenly it has to be monetized. And as a segue, there's this beautiful warehouse that existed directly across. It was an old factory, and he had granted the artist permission, graffiti artists, to create art all over the walls. And you'd take the 7 and you'd pass by this building and it would be incredible. But then he would make a lot more money turning it into a luxury high-rise. And so it went to court, they sued to stop it. He destroyed it anyway, but at the end he did have to compensate the artist whose work he destroyed. But I think initially they just did it for the love, for the expression. And I'm glad PS1 is here. I'm glad it was here when it was nothing. But then, of course, in 2000, it merged with MoMA and got money and more resources and sort of became more of a traditional museum. It's still very much committed to introducing an alternative art or contemporary art. I have still seen a lot of people of color represented here. They have beautiful programming, like on Sundays there's live music, there's concerts in the summer, there's immersive artwork. I think it's well worth the trip, and to New Yorkers with a photo ID, it's free. So I want you to take a look. This is what I remember public schools being like, and this was what I went up and down the first time I visited. So we're on the third floor at an exhibit called Between Buildings, and the focus is on community gardens. It's a big deal for the urban environment, especially in a place where populated by a lot of brown and black people. So the significance of that is through this concrete jungle, people found space to bring beauty through plants and greenery. And even that was kind of denied them for profit, selling a piece of land, not caring about their community garden. And sometimes that enabled them to grow fresh food because there was no supermarkets that sold produce. So that's the beauty of art. You're looking at an artist making a political statement and also giving us a bit of history that we might not know, and also putting in context what a community garden means to somebody living in an urban environment. So why do I keep going to museums? Because museums hold all sorts of interesting artifacts and history and expressions and moments in time. And art is for everyone. And that's kind of what I want people to realize. Whether you like it or dislike it, it's for everyone and you should explore it. And I love when I come out of a museum and my mind's been taken to a totally different place and I've learned a piece of something, a bit of knowledge that I didn't have before. And even though people complained about how one-sided sometimes art can be, but it's still there, so you have a reference point and you can know what it's missing. And because of this dialogue, people are very well aware that diversity was missing and that they were excluding a whole group of people. So we just went to PS1 and we saw art by a Palestinian woman. We saw art by an English guy, black artists and brown artists talking about urban gardens. And it just made me think, and it just made me know more about the world. So I hope you go on that adventure. Go into a museum, don't be intimidated, don't feel like you have to know or explain. Art meets you on all levels.